Welcome to Hammerspace Recording. My name is Troy Neberbarn, and today we're going to have a look at the ugliest pedal board you've seen all week. Thank you so much for joining me for another video. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe and do all those things that YouTubers tell you to do. Today, a little bit different. Rather than doing a gear demo, I want to show you the pedal board that I use for a lot of the gigs that I go out and do on a week-to-week basis. So I have a rack of amps behind me, and they are all great, and they sound really good. And as you know, I love playing the synergy stuff. I've got heaps of guitars. When it comes time to showing up and just performing for 3 to 4 hours at a time, 1 to 3 times a week, 4 times a week, what I need is something reasonably straightforward, easy to transport around, sounds good, and can do my job in the simplest, easiest way possible, right? So as much as I love taking the rack of amps or all the crazy pedals and the guitars and the whatever stuff that I have, this board that I just quickly demonstrated at the intro to this video, this is pretty much all I take with me to a gig. I said in the intro, it's probably the ugliest board that you'll see all week, and I'll sort of demonstrate why. Here it is right here. So nothing is Velcroed down anymore. You can see everything's kind of a bit loosey-goosey. It's been pulled apart. There's like beer stains all over the pedals. It's really dusty. It's pretty disgusting. It needs a bit of love, to be honest with you. But once again, I take this thing with me to every gig pretty much. The duo trio gigs that I do, and yeah, it basically lives in its hard case at all times. I put it together because the specific gig that I have been doing for the last maybe 7 years, 8 years, it was predominantly a duo gig. And it required some amount of like looping / rhythm just to make that format work and be a little bit more exciting. I've done heaps of gigs solo, just playing acoustic guitar, and I actually quite enjoy that as a format to play music, just playing and singing. Sometimes with the duo stuff, when it's just that, and you've got a dance floor and people want to get up and move a little bit, it just feels a little bit kind of underwhelming. So this specific gig that I got, the original brief was I want loops. This is from the singer. So I came into this band as predominantly just a guitar player. The singer requested like some sort of looping system. And really what the looping system meant was some form of rhythm. At the time we started, it was an acoustic guitar, a loop pedal, 2 singers. I'd sing as well. And the rhythm came from just sort of doing the tapping on the guitar thing to give that sort of kick drum sound, that stompy kick drum sort of sound thing. You can do a lot with that, but over the course of time, it just felt like if I didn't nail the loop, it just felt a bit weird. Certain PAs and certain venues and certain rooms even, it didn't really feel that exciting to whack the guitar, like the bottom end wasn't really clear enough. And I tried having different setups and various pedals. Didn't really work. So it kind of went from there to having a stomp box, but the stomp box is something I would put into the looper. So, I mean, we're all sort of familiar with that setup, just something you can use to keep tapping your foot for the length of a song. I'm an inherently lazy person, and I didn't want to be playing guitar and singing and stomping my foot at the same time. That was just too much work for me. So I bought a stomp pedal. I ran it into the looper, and so I could loop the tempo of the song just with a simple 4 to the floor, like kick sort of sound. And that worked for a couple of years. From there, we graduated to a Digitech Jam Man, the one with the 4 buttons on it, which had some amount of rhythm built into it and like a stompy sort of thing as well. So basically it allowed me to not have to loop anything. I could just hit a button, the stomp would start at a steady tempo, whichever tempo I chose, and we'd sort of be off and running. And I could loop sections of songs in if I wanted to play guitar solos. So that all felt really cool. Moving on to about 2020, Boss put out this RC-500 loop pedal, and this is sort of how the pedal board has come to life since around 2020, 2021, and hasn't really changed that much. Look, I said I take it out with me a lot. It goes out a couple times a week. It doesn't leave the case unless it's at a gig, and I just know it all kind of works. So it's a bit of a case of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But what I want to do today is just describe and discuss why I put together the elements of this pedal board and how they interact with each other, because it is very specific, and it works really great for the 60, 70 songs that I have to play on a weekly basis. First things first, I'll just discuss the board itself, which is a Rockboard 4.1. I've really liked using these boards. I've had about 4 of them, 5 of them maybe over the last couple of years. They're reasonably lightweight. They're really sturdy. And Rockboard have a lot of cables and attachments and whatnot that make this format really easy just to build a board around. So this board is a Rockboard 4.1. I have it in the hard case. Underneath it, I have a True Tone CS7 power supply, which powers the 4 pedals that you can see on the top of the board. I also have the Mod 1 patch bay that Rockboard make, which you can sort of see at the back of the board there. There's a couple of, maybe I'll lift it up in a second, but I just use that as simple outputs from the pedals to get to the PA. I have run this board, to sort of take a slight detour, I've run this board in more situations than just a straight up looper and rhythm machine sort of a thing. I have run it as a 4 cable method in front of into some tube amps. I've run it as just the HX Stomp in front of amps just to do that, or into FRFR amps as well. So it kind of does everything, and I can make it do anything. And honestly, if I've got one thing ever, really, this board will kind of do the whole lot. So the patch bay allowed for a lot of complicated and not so complicated wiring, depending on how I was feeling in the moment. I've sort of settled at the moment, at least for the last maybe 2 years, on just leaving this board for the duo/trio gigs that I do, and trying not to overuse it for other things, because I've got heaps of other gear and I just like to take other stuff out for gigs. So moving on, we've got the stuff underneath the board. The first thing on this board that the guitar goes into is this Boss WL50 wireless. And I mean, most of the time I'm doing these gigs and I'm sitting on a stool, but also most of the gigs that I do, I'm running sound as well. And so to be able to have a wireless that lets me just set up and then walk out the front by a little bit to listen to what the PA sounds like, that's really useful. I'm not going to advocate for using a wireless system in every scenario, but certainly when you have to do kind of everything in one sitting, it makes life a lot easier. Moving on, we go out of the wireless system and we go into the front of the Line 6 HX Stomp. So I've been using HX Stomps for a couple of years now. Let's have my face in there as well. I've been using HX Stomps or Line 6 products in my pedals and like gigging rigs for many years, starting with the M9, which I reckon I picked that up 12 years ago. And I use the M9 as a bass rig, as an electric guitar rig, as an acoustic rig. I use the looper in it. I use pretty much everything of it. And I still think that's a really, really awesome pedal. I still drag it out in the studio sometimes. I had to rewire the leads of the power supply because they frayed out a couple of times. So it's had a couple of issues with that side of it. But otherwise, it's a really great sounding unit. And around sort of 2020, I just decided I wanted to try something different. So I actually just got myself a Pod Go, Line 6 Pod Go. And I used that for about 12 months. And that was really great, because the one thing about the M9 is it doesn't have any amps in it. It's purely just an effects unit. So I have basically one preset in here to do the entire gig. The reason for that is I tried to have a couple of presets for like a bass sound and for a guitar sound and for a lead sound, but the way that I have the HX Stomp integrated with the RC-500 is I actually use the RC-500 in the loop of the HX Stomp, and what that allows me to do is have to be able to plug headphones directly into the output of the HX Stomp if I just want to try a new sound or just have a jam by myself. So yeah, it was quite an efficient way of doing so. What I noticed is if I ran multiple like presets, even with the effects loop engaged, when I jumps between different presets, there was just a little bit of a lag and a little bit of a delay, and it just didn't seem like really seamless. So consequently, I'm just in the one preset, one amp sound, and a couple of things that just turn on and off depending on what it is that I'm doing over the course of a song. So I'll stick with the HX Stomp, and we'll talk about the RC-500 in a second. It is just, if anyone's interested, it's just the Fender Princeton amp with no special IRs or anything like that. It's just the Fender Princeton in one of the stock like cabinets. I think it's just the Princeton cabinet with however that comes. That sounded pretty good to me. I use the Prince of Tone, I think it is, or the King of Tone in front of that just to have a slight bit of breakup. It sounds a little bit something like this, which will grab the guitar. And I'll plug it in as well, excuse me. Which is not going to win any awards for the greatest guitar sound, and that's kind of okay. One thing about the gigs that I do is I am not the star of the show. There is no star of the show. I'm paid to do a job, and the job is to entertain people. So the ego that I have attached to the guitar nerd stuff is just put to the side, and we don't think about it. We just have to play the gig. So what this sound allows me to do is play songs that are reasonably clean to reasonably dirty, depending on what the song is, and it doesn't sound wildly out of place. I mean, I would much rather have a more like higher gain Marshall tone to play with on certain things, and you know, I could maybe set it up, but I like to be spontaneous and flexible, and at the moment, just having the one sound where I don't have to think about what the guitar sound is, I can just play music. I find that a lot more useful to the way that I operate at gigs. So again, it's the Fender Princeton with the Heir Apparent. I guess that's the Prince of Tone in front of it. A little bit of reverb after it. What I did in the intro clip, which was a Snoop Dogg and Justin Timberlake Signs. Anybody, if you want to go check that one out. And that's a lot of the songs I do as well. It's like some R&B-ish sort of stuff, and there's a bit of pop stuff, and there's a bit of rock stuff. It kind of covers everything, and this is why I can't just have one wicked, heavy metal guitar sound and get through a whole gig. It just ain't gonna work. So this covers that. When I do the bass stuff, I flick on this guy. That's the bass octave sound in the HX Stomp. It's one thing that I've found the Line 6 unit does better than just about any other pedal, at least that I've tried, and including the M9. I really love the bass octave on this. And I mean, it doesn't sound like a bass exactly, but it's close enough. It tracks reasonably well if you play it, kind of even, and if you don't try, mistakenly play chords or anything like that. And putting that on top of and playing it like a bass and putting that on top of an electric part, it sounds really good. I have a compressor that turns on when the octave pedal turns on as well, so it helps to keep everything like reasonably even. Occasionally when I'm playing songs, it really depends on what the song is, I might loop the electric guitar part and then just like sort of free play bass lines over the top of it. Sometimes I use my fingers if I'm feeling extra spicy. Most of the time I'll use a pick. I've spent a long time playing bass in bands, so I kind of know how to play bass, and I quite like playing bass sometimes. This is as close an approximation as I can get, even though playing with the pick is not my preferred way of doing it if I have the option. So that's my second sound that I use with this rig. And then the last one in green is just a lead, which sounds like this. And that's just like a high gain version of the Prince of Tone, and a little bit of a volume increase as well. So it just helps stick out over the top of the rest of the band, or the rest of the loop as I'm playing. And it's really as simple as that. If with this particular sound that I have at the moment, I can usually back the volume down a bit. if I want to just do some skanky stuff over the top of a loop or just play some little licks here and there, and just roll the volume up when I've got to rip a proper solo. And in terms of the guitar sound, like that's basically it. What I have is the RC-500 doing all the looping and doing all the rhythmic stuff. So when this came out, I was more interested in the rhythm side of this than I was the looping side. Like I hadn't really used the Boss loopers that much, and I was quite comfortable on the Digitech one and how that operated. But there's a lot of just simple rhythms in this that aren't like super sexy, but just to give that little bit of extra energy when you're playing, it does something, which I quite like. The important thing is that I use the looper and I use the Morningstar MIDI controller in conjunction, really to run the whole gig, and I can't do my gig without those two things. I mean, I can't do it without any of this gear. But the way that I've got the looper set up at the moment, I'll talk about that, and then I'll talk about how the Morningstar integrates with it. So it's pretty much similarly laid out to what the writing says. Button 1 is the record play, and so I have it set up so when I just press it once, you can see it's flashing, but it's not actually recording. It waits for some sound before it actually goes into record mode. So I've got the guitar on a stand at the moment. I'll just turn the guitar up, and I'm just going to hit the strings. And you can hear that goes into record and it starts playing the loop. And that's how I've got it set up. So pretty much once I'm ready to play a song, I just hit the record button. Everything waits for me to be ready. And as soon as I start, we're recording, which means that there isn't the accidental chance of me pressing the button and starting a chord at the wrong time and just cutting off the very start of the loop. And I found that really useful to use. So yeah, that was one great thing about this looper when I got it, was like that feature. I also have it set up to, if I press it again, it will, like during a loop, it will stop the loop, will stop recording and just start playing back. And if I want to layer any other parts on it, I just press it again and it will play the next part. The stop button just stops the loop, as you would imagine. And I can restart the loop by pressing the play button again. So play, stop. If I want to wipe out a loop and do another song, I just press and hold the stop button and it removes it from memory and we're ready to go. And then last but not least is the button that says track select just turns the rhythm track on and off. And that is for the songs that we do where I don't have a loop to record, but we just want to have some semblance of rhythm or band happening behind the guitar part and the two vocals. So it's certainly nicer to have bass, but if we can't do it, at least it makes the gig and a set feel consistent in its sound. But that's how that's set up at the moment, with the buttons on the front. But there's some other stuff on the inside of the unit that is all controlled via MIDI and more specifically controlled by the Morningstar, which I got this in 2021. I think it was 2021. It's a really great MIDI pedal. It's not now the older version, I guess. I think they just put out another one, another new Pro version. But it's quite easy to program once you get your head around it. And like in conjunction with the other two devices, it just kind of unlocks so many more useful, interesting things. What I didn't do, you can see on the front some of the buttons and how they're laid out. And in fact, to look at the bottom row, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I've got one button that's just the tuner, which if I press that, the HX Stomp goes into tuner mode. I don't have any buttons or any other convenient way to do that on the HX Stomp, which is so very easy to do. If I put the rhythm track on, you can see on the bottom row of this, I have the option to turn off the kick and snare. Just go straight to hi-hats. I can turn off that crash as well. Like so. And it's really small, but it's enough. Having that change is enough where if you're just trying to play through a whole song and make maybe just one part feel a little bit more interesting, you know, you can turn off your snare drum in a bridge, or you can turn it off at an intro, and it creates another layer of dynamics. And really that's what this is about, is if I'm just playing a gig with an acoustic guitar and a vocal, there's kind of only two things that can give you like steps and layers within building intensity in a song. You add a second vocal into that, well, there's two things. If you add in a rhythm track, well, that's a whole, or a loop with a bass, you just have way more stuff to deal with. On the top row, firstly, you'll notice a button here that says set list. Now, this is just programmed for the songs that we do quite often in the set. I'm not sure how many are programmed in here at the moment, but I can basically just hit the set list button and then just cycle through a bunch of tracks that we might do in a gig. So there's 500 Miles, not a loop song, just a rhythm track song. When I select the song, what it does is I have programmed into the Morningstar the tempos of each of the songs that we do. And I've also programmed into it the drum patterns that we like to use that exist within the RC-500. So you'll notice we're at 130 BPM at the moment. It's flashing 130 BPM. The looper is also flashing at that tempo. If we wanted to pick a different song, like for example, what's another one? Get Lucky. Now that's changed to 116 BPM, and the RC-500 has also changed its tempo as well. They both chase each other. So I do that within the Morningstar because the one knock that I have on the Boss RC-500 is that all of the editing has to be done, or at least when I first got it, has to be done on the unit itself. You can't plug a USB in and just program like names of songs and pick rhythm patterns and stuff. It was just really slow to do it on the unit. So I can do that on the Morningstar controller, which easy to just plug in a USB cable, type in the songs, put the tempos in, bing, bang, boom, and you're pretty much off to the races. So that just makes it really quick to use. The other thing that I do, like I just mentioned, is each song that's programmed into the Morningstar also corresponds with a certain rhythm pattern that's on the RC-500. And there's I'm not sure how many there are. There's maybe 60 or more or less rhythm patterns that they include. And it is really simple. I mean, you can hear this. It's pretty straightforward. So there's a lot of different patterns that sort of work with the song that we're trying to do at the time. With the Morningstar, I send CC messages to the Boss RC-500 that correspond with what those those rhythm patterns are within the unit. So it takes a little bit of fiddling. You've got to go and assign all of the MIDI inputs on the RC-500 to what you want them to control in the unit. So it does take a little bit to set up. It's not impossibly difficult, but it takes a second to do. But I said, in doing so, when we're ready to play a song, I just ask my partner what's next. He tells me, I hit the button, and then bang, I just have to scroll through the set, find whatever the song is, hit it, and we play the song. So outside of that, I mean, the undo button is right there. That's pretty self-explanatory. If I record something and I screw up, I can just press the undo button and do it again. The other interesting thing though is, like I mentioned, I like to be really spontaneous when we play, because it does get a little draining to play the same songs and the same set like every week. And I'm more than happy to take requests. I mentioned that we maybe do 60 songs. We probably do more than that. I've, in my life, learned maybe 700 or 800 songs with various different bands. I can't remember all of them, but I can remember a lot of them. And sometimes I forget that I've learned it at some point until someone says, oh, play Taylor Swift or something. And so if that happens, if there's a song that gets requested that I've played and I feel comfortable that I can either make up half the words or I've got enough time to look it up on my phone, we'll just launch right into it. That's all well and good, but if you don't have a preset set up in this rig to do that quickly, you're a bit sort of screwed. But thankfully, there is a tempo menu here in the top corner. So what I'll do is, if there's a song that comes up, like it's a Taylor Swift song, I'll just kind of find a pattern that is similar to what the drum beat is. I'll select that. I'll come into the tempo menu and then just tap in whatever the tempo of the song is, and then we can pretty much play the song. And then I have 2 independent outputs on the one from the Boss RC-500, which is the rhythm track, and then one for the HX Stomp, which is the just all of the music side. They can go to front of house or to monitors, and there's individual control of both of those. And that was something about the older rigs that I've used where I didn't have that ability, which is quite frustrating. I would be doing, it would just take ages to get a sound that worked, and a balance between the guitar and then the rhythm track, or the thumpy whacking the guitar track, whatever it might be. Worked great in one room, and then it just would sound terrible in the next gig we did. So at least this way, I've got about as much control as you could ever need. So that's pretty much it. And I mean, to demonstrate really quick how easy I can get up a song, I mean, let's just go over here. Let's do Get Lucky, which sounds like... I mean, that's pretty easy. I don't know what else we got. Everybody's favorite, Return of the Mac. That's just how you do it. So this is how we do it. I could do that too, but maybe we'll leave that for next time. So that is my stupid, not very neat, super useful, idiot-proof, complicated gigging pedal board that I use every week. You know, it definitely needs a birthday. It is pretty messy. I'm not proud of that, but honestly, to me, that's what a working pedal board is. It's not manicured. It's not like everything is in place. It's just, how do you get through the job you need to do? And, you know, I really, like, if I've learned nothing, and if there's one thing I'm like kind of passionate about when it comes to music, is like, this stuff doesn't really matter. Like, it's fun. It's really fun, but it's pretty self-indulgent. And what matters is, like, if someone's paying you to do a job, you just have to kind of do it the best you can. And remember that sometimes they're not there for you. They're just there, and you got to make them have a good time. You know, that's not everybody's gig, but that's mostly my gig. And this board facilitates that. Once again, not super neat, but it sounds reasonably good and good enough for what I need to do. And then when there are gigs where I've got a big PA and a sound person, I might take the big rigs and have a party that way. But otherwise, this rig, I can tell you right now, it takes about 5 minutes to set up. It takes about 5 minutes to pack down or less. And then I'm in my car and ready to go home. So that's something that's important to me. So I hope that was useful for you. I might do a couple more videos on this rig in the future. Just go through the presets a little bit more and maybe a bit more in depth with how the MIDI changes work. If that's something that's of interest to you, please let me know. You know, love talking about myself, and I love talking about the rig. And until next time, please like and subscribe. Buy my Tonex packs if you're interested, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.